Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Construction Complete, the show where we talk about all things Super Mario Maker. My name is Killjoy, and today we're back taking a look at another level I've done for my Super Mario Bros. 3 remix. This is 3-1, so we're on to the third world now. As you can probably tell, if that's anything like the original, it's all about swimming. Just for those who don't know, this series is primarily based around the idea that I can talk about stuff Super Mario Maker related. Primarily been looking at my remix, which is basically where I've been going back and doing levels in the style of Super Mario Bros. 3, based on the original worlds. Some of the levels are much more inspired by, some I've taken some creative liberties, some are just quite different. So yeah, that's basically the premise of it. As always with all these videos, you will see the course code at the beginning of this video, now probably, and at the end of the video if you want to go and check it out and have a play and all that good stuff. So normally with these, so I'm going to play the level, then we're going to talk about the level, critique it, and I'll play it again at the end so you can see, but let's just get to it. As it's a swimming level, I like to have this top layer where it's like on the ground, and then a bottom layer which is the swimming, so that you've got you can actually have a finish without being underwater. You should instantly see this is very similar to 3-1 already, going with the sort of hidden block at the bottom down there. Primarily there's only really bloopers on this level, I believe, so it's got that feel to it. It's a little bit empty, I think, but for this first swimming level it's more of an obstacle course, less about the enemies and more about just collecting coins and avoiding pipes and things like that. Now, there is one thing that I don't like about this game, is that they changed how bloopers with kids work. Basically, they used to fire off the kids, but they don't do that now. Why they changed it, I don't know. But you can just shoot the little children individually. That's not a sentence I thought I'd ever say, but yeah, the little blooper children, you can use a fire flower and take them out individually rather than just shooting the big one. So that's kind of annoying, but I understand that maybe functionality-wise it was a bit hard to implement how they used to work, but, you know, never mind. Let's get some coins while I'm being chased by this particular blooper. He looks very happy. Mr. Blooper. But you should probably see this is very similar in certain ways to the original 3-1, where it is obviously underwater. There's some stuff. There's nice steps here leading up to the... I've got a feeling I may have... Come here, little... There you go. I may have put a secret block here. No. Okay, interesting. I did not. But a very simple level, sort of introductory to the first swimming level of this world. Take that. And that's pretty much it. Nothing too crazy. Fairly simple. But, right, we don't need to look at the top level, simply because it's just the start and the end of the level. So let's go to where it really matters. Over here. Cool. So, bear in mind when you build a swimming level, obviously the physics work differently, the enemies work differently generally, so you're not thinking about it in the same way you would as a level that's overground. It's also the same with if I had made it swimming and then I made it scrolling, you then have to think about level design differently. But because it is a swimming level, and I look back at the original, I'm like thinking, what made the original 3-1, you know, kind of fun, as a fun introduction to swimming? Well, it's because you've got a lot of space. There's a lot of space in that level. There aren't that many enemies. You technically have those fire plants, I've forgotten what the name of them are, that could spew out fireballs, but they're not in this game to my knowledge. So I decided to remove that aspect of it and kind of focus on just making kind of an obstacle course with coins and some different types of bloopers, and that was really it. And then you've got that Koopa Trooper at the end there who can get in the way. But generally speaking, if you look around, you'll see to start with, I've gone for down on here with my pandas, very similar design to the original level, where if you go down on the left straight away, you get a mushroom or a fire flower or something related. Now, the thing with bloopers is they can be quite tricky enemies. They're not too bad in this game. They don't seem overly aggressive, but you probably saw when I was playing that you've got to be aware that they can go through land and things. So I didn't want to put too many bloopers in, because if you start putting too many in, they get very hectic and they get in the way very, very quickly. So I tried to space them out so that you probably never really have two more on screen if you're dealing with them. That's kind of the plan. So yeah, we start off in the pipe up here, and instantly, you know, your reaction is probably going to go right. You can see that hole there. And, but the nice thing about this is you can go through the bottom bit, so you can go up or over. And you're greeted by the first enemy, and like I always say, you want to make sure that when you start a level, you're not going to get instantly into trouble. So this blooper he's on screen, but there's no way you can get hit by him in the first, like, few seconds. Look how slow it takes him to get over it. You're like, oh good, a blooper, great. Nobody likes these enemies. So you're just like, yeah, swim past him. Now, I've talked about blind drops in my levels. Obviously, I don't know what's down there. So I really do have to think about, when I'm building these levels, not to just put, like, loads of enemies. Because you think, if, on this area, let's just zoom out. If I put a blooper down here, or multiple enemies down here, the screen has to scroll. It doesn't have to scroll all the way, but it has to scroll enough to activate those enemies. If I suddenly start doing that, and there's tons of enemies moving around, it becomes kind of unfair, because you don't have the ability to see. Now, if I put a cheap here that's swimming back and forth, I get a red one. Right. If I do this, as the camera scrolls down, I'm like, oh, cheap. He's already activated, but the nice thing about cheap is it doesn't follow you. So you see there's another blooper there now. If I go down here now I'm dealing with two of these things. So you don't really want... You can see it can get quite chaotic quite quickly, and with something like a blooper, they will absolutely just track you the entire time. That's the whole point of them. So I try to be careful with it, so that I could put electrodes down here, or like spike traps in this game. I think they're called electrodes, and have some static spikes, and that's not so bad, I think. But as soon as you start putting moving components while the screen is scrolling down, like, you've got to be aware that the player can only see so far down. So you don't want to just like set it up to be, you know, a bunch of enemies. Like, for example, if I was to do this, oops, not that. If I zoom out, grab this little critter here, just copy you. Alright. This is what I mean by, like, not going too overboard. So I've all got to deal with that blooper. So as soon as the screen scrolls to a certain distance, oh my god, I only just avoided that. And now you're dealing with a lot of a mess of enemies. So you do have to be aware when the camera in this, because you can't, especially moving up and down, it's you're moving at a certain speed that you don't have any control over it. So the level starts, and you've got a bit of time. You're underwater, obviously. Time to figure out those controls. You've got this one blooper that you deal with. Once you go down here, there's an item in this block, and then you deal with this little fella here. Oh, there's a secret. Cool. And so as the level goes on, it's designed to be more difficult. So now I'm getting the pipes are in the way. There's coins there. Do you want to risk going for those coins if you're small and there's a blooper about? Probably not.
Here we go.
Because of the way they work. You know, they can box you in quite easily. Going left, going right, going left. You know, they're not the hardest thing to get past, but they can be a bit fiddly. You know, you do have to be a little bit careful around bloopers because they're a little bit unpredictable. So the point here is that I'm trying to space the bloopers out as challenges throughout the level without overwhelming the player on this first level. Because again, you're trying to set the difficulty. As we're getting into later into the game, the levels are going to get harder. But right now, I'm like, right, first level, first swimming level specifically, how do I want to introduce the player to those mechanics if they've never played it before? Oh, okay, right. Here are bloopers spaced out throughout the level, which are annoying enemies to deal with, but usually enough space to deal with it. So you've got the first one over here. Nice big open space. Then you get the second one in a much more enclosed space. And then as you come past this one, get through the pipes up here, you then get greeted by this one with kids, which you're like, oh, what does this do? And to be honest, not a lot. But back into an open space again. And then as you fall down here, enclosed space with a blooper. So you'll see, like, if I go here, there's always a lot of space to maneuver, because I know how hard it is to deal with these things. They are a pain, especially this one. It's got loads of kids. You know, you want to avoid it, and then so you get open space, and then you come down here, and you're back into a more enclosed space, and now you've got to deal with music blocks as well. So what's it like dealing with this little fella here with these music blocks? Well, you can go up the top here quite easily. Avoid him. He's meant to be... The reason why there's only one blooper here is these blocks will bounce you around. You know, if you're trying to do stuff and bouncing around, it can be quite frustrating. So I don't want to go too crazy. And that's why there's a power-up in the middle of it as well. So that you can not die. So that, like, once you deal with this one blooper, you've got a chance of getting a power-up. Because you've then got to deal with this one. It's still in an enclosed space. So you can see the difficulty here is you've had an open space, a closed space, a more open space with a blooper with kids, and now you've got a blooper with these blocks everywhere, and then a choice to get some coins, followed by a power-up still in an enclosed space with another blooper that's quite close by. So if I'm
Here we go.
dealing with this little fella, and he goes over there, I'm like, oh cool. And then there's this dude, I can potentially get trapped between two bloopers, which you don't want, but it's enough of a challenge so that the player isn't just breezing through it. You do have to think about where you're swimming in here. If you hit those blocks, you'll fly up or down. Like, if I do this, you fly down. You keep tapping not to happen, but all the same when I bounce up. Like, I bounce a certain height. You can use that to your advantage. You can start mashing on there, but you have to be very careful with bloopers, I think, because they can go through things. They're not like cheaps. They're not like most enemies that will go back and forth. You do have to really think about, okay, if I put a lot of these enemies on screen, how much of a challenge do I want to give the player? So you do have to think about it. After this little dude here, we come up here, some coins, there's a few more blocks, and the level ends off with a single blooper and kids, some coins here, and then the end of the level. As you can see, the level's not that complex. It's actually quite simple. It's very much up and down throughout the time, because I want people to feel like, you know, like later on when I do more of the water levels, I want people to be like, okay, it's a challenge, there's obstacles to avoid, there's things to collect, all that good stuff. Whereas here I'm more like, okay, get used to the mechanics. There are some obstacles in the sense that there are bloopers, but I feel like they're nicely paced out. If I do the level, if I just play the level again, I'm not going to get any power-ups, I'm just going to swim, and you'll try and look how spaced out the bloopers are. So we've got this first one here, we just avoid him, hopefully. So we avoid him, we get past him. Once he's off screen, not a threat. This dude, let's get past him. He's off screen, not a threat anymore. Right, kid one, let's get out of the way of you. Past him, not a threat anymore. And you can see that, like, as soon as you have multiple of these fools on screen, it becomes a problem. But if you can just keep going, keep your pace up, like I'm not collecting any power-ups. I'm just going for it. So they can simultaneously be frustrating and not at the same time. And that's the thing to remember, is that, you know, bloopers are an enemy that if you know how they work, like anything, you're not gonna struggle too much with them. But they are very fiddly, and they're not the kind of enemy you want to be messing around in a small space with. So this level's all about momentum, really. If you decide to stop and collect all the coins, like, that's obviously an option. Hopefully you've got a fire flower at that point. You can just shoot in it. The level's not that difficult. But if you're trying to do it small, it's a little bit fiddly. You've got to deal with the bloopers coming at you from all sides. So that's the level generally. I quite like it for an introductory. I do think, though, looking at it, maybe it's a little bit boring. Maybe it's a little bit, like, not that interesting. But you know what? When I go back and look at the original 3-1 from Super Mario Brothers, I see that that level isn't that complex either. Obviously got that fire plant, but other than that, it's not that bad. Like, it's generally just, like, very simple design. Could I add more enemies in? Yes. Could I have different types of enemies? Maybe spike traps is a good idea. You know, I think adding more bloopers in would be the wrong way to go about it, but maybe a couple of cheaps here and there. I think if I redid it, like maybe I'd have a cheap down here by these blocks, or I'd have a cheap sort of swimming back and forth. The only problem with that is, again, you're trying to teach the player about the kind of the open space of dealing with these bloopers, and then a more closed space of dealing with the bloopers. Same with this dude. Like, he's open, and then this one is a more closed space. In fact, you've got two that are in a more enclosed space, and then finally the one at the end that's in a more open space. So, in some aspects, I don't feel too bad about making the level, you know, have very little enemies and kind of get the player used to dealing with stuff, a particular type of enemy in a small space and a large space. And I like the fact, I mean, the coins are all kind of all over the place. Yeah, maybe they could do a better job of placing them, but I quite like this level being, you know, not too difficult. There's definitely plenty of power-ups, there's plenty of coins. It's quite a nice little romp through the water. But if I had to criticise anything, it probably would be maybe different types of enemies, maybe just redesign the level a little bit. Like, maybe does this need to be as high as it is? I could lower the roof, and I don't know. It's very minor problems with it. It's not my favourite level I made. But I do think it's a good introductory level to World 3, which is all about water, so I'm pretty happy with it. So I'm going to play through it one more time, just so you guys can see it, and I will use a power-up. Normally I do it small, but you've seen me do it small already. I'm going to sort of blitz through it using power-ups and stuff, but because obviously it's a bit different. I can't just run and then walk through these levels. I can only really swim through it. If I had a frog suit on here, which I could show what would happen if I put a frog suit on here, maybe I'll do that afterwards. I'll equip Mario with a frog suit and we'll see. But you'll see, obviously, as soon as I get the fire flower on this level becomes quite trivial. But that's kind of what I like about certain levels in Mario, where if you've got the right power-up, the level just dynamic becomes easy. You know, these bloopers are no longer a problem. It's like, oh, cool. We don't have to worry about anything, especially this bit. It's like, oh, cool, I've got time to collect the coins. Nice and easy. Don't need the other fire flower in there. But a frog suit is another item that would make this level kind of trivial as well, I guess. Let's get some coins here. I know some people don't like it when I skip over all the money, so they get some of it. Oh! Check out a couple of the kids. So let's try that with a frog suit and see what that looks like. Back at the beginning level. Just do like the frog suit.
Here we go.
Why are you down there, Mario? Get up here.
Here we go.
Oh, I forgot it bounces around. Come here. Right. What happens if we do this with a frog suit? Whee! Now, because I've got directional controls, apart from moving very, very fast, you can see how much easier this is. Ooh. That's the one thing I like about the frog suit, is that everything becomes... water levels become so much easier because you move in 4 directions rather than that kind of floaty direction. You can just bypass it. There's a reason why there isn't a frog suit. Like, obviously the update came out later, but there is a reason why there isn't a frog suit on this level. Simply because this makes it a bit too easy. Whee! Off he hops. Hoppy hop.
Here we go.
But yeah, I mean, overall I'm pretty happy with it. Is it my best work? No. But is it a level that I very much enjoyed making? Of course, because it's building water levels is hard. I think it's tough, and trying to make something feel fluid, and you know, and also not too difficult. As we go on with World 3, you'll see that some of these levels do get more harder, or do get harder, I should say, and you know, this is where the game really starts to ramp up. World 4, I would say, is when it starts getting much harder. World 4 and World 5. But World 3 relies on you being able to use a lot of the water mechanics, and you'll see that, like, I'm trying to build levels around the water mechanics of this world. And obviously there's not I can't do everything like I could in the original game, but I can do it as close as I can. So that's going to do it for me today then, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it, hit like. If you want to see more content, hit the subscribe button. Obviously, if you want to, there's the links for Facebook and Twitter are down below if you want to get involved there. Again, the course code will be up at the end if you want to try it. Feel free to give me feedback. I'm always curious because I can always update these levels to make them better. And until next video, I'll see you then.